Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Talking About Birds, the only Cardinal podcast that, like Mason Wynn, needs to take a break. My name is Nate Heininger, and I am joined this week by friend of the show, co-host of multiple things, host of Peace, Love, and Baseball, and just all-around better person than me, Kelsey Burd. Thank you so much for being here, Kelsey.
You can say I'm a better person than Ben, but then you, I don't know.
You know, that's so right. Why did I roast myself when Ben is just not here? It would have been so much easier.
Now is the time. I actually want to wish Ben all the best because I was listening to your episode last week, and I think it's really cool that him and Mary are finally taking a honeymoon, because my husband and I we've been married for almost 4 years, but we got married in 2020. So we, did not take a honeymoon, and it inspired me to feel like, you know what?
Yeah,
I can do that too.
Go and do something.
So Ben is inspiring me, even though he's not here.
Yeah, well, that may be the one moment in his entire life that he's inspired someone. So let's, we'll take a moment we'll embrace it, and we won't be too mean to him. He is, he's out somewhere on an island, probably sipping Mai Tais right now. And so we do wish him and Mary the best. I think it's kind of bullshit that he's missing such a critical moment of the season. But you know what? Yeah. That's fine. It's fine. It's his honeymoon. He needs to be out there. I get it.
I'm here because I'm a more serious baseball fan.
Yes, exactly. We take this seriously, and we don't just leave for a week and a half. So thank you for being here, Kelsey. It's been a while since you've been on the show. I think you were last with us on our 100th episode.
Yes. Big celebration with Kyle Reese and the Podfathers. So yeah, I'm glad to be back and not have to, defend my persuasion for some of the things that the Cardinals do sometimes that, I know aren't practical, but I've enjoyed watching Matt Carpenter play this year. Have you?
Yes. I kind of think of fandom. There's kind of like fandom leading with your heart and fandom leading with your head, right?
Absolutely.
And I probably, like, my base state is I probably am more of like a head first fan, and that's what leads me to arguing things like Tommy Edman should be traded and stuff like that. But I'm so easily just pulled into the heart side. Yeah. It takes just the tiniest thing to make me like throw all that to the side and not care about the stats and whatnot. And there is a part of me, Matt Carpenter's been really testing that this year, frankly, that balance between head and heart. And, but yeah, I love Matt Carpenter, and, it's just fun to watch.
And all things considered, that wasn't going to be the thing that was going to make or break this team. Yes. And yeah, I guess I'm kind of like the opposite of you, where my initial instinct is like heart first, but I'm immediately like, don't even say it, because someone's going to tell you how stupid this is, and you know how stupid it is, but I'm going to say it anyway, because you're right. It's at least half and half, that like half of us are heart first, half of us are head first, and most of us fall somewhere in between.
Yeah. And I think that's part of the fun of fandom too, is that you frankly, it allows you to argue justifiably, even if that the argument that you're making is not necessarily the most based in like a factual thing. It doesn't matter. It's sports. It's fandom. It doesn't matter if Skip Schumacher was your favorite player of all time. Like, that's your favorite. So you get to argue it, right? We love our itty bitty gritty white guys on this show. So, it's part of baseball, and I think you bring a good balance to it for us, nerds who just can get too in our own heads about the underlying metrics. The amount of times I say underlying metrics on this show is
have you been looking at Tommy Edman's stat line this season?
I have a whole
While we're on
segment
the
later
topic.
for you on Tommy
Okay.
Edman. Don't
I just
worry.
wanted to make sure we're gonna get to it.
Yeah, Tommy Edman will receive his flowers on this show, I'm sure, throughout.
Finally.
So no worries. But I did want to ask you, so since the last time you were on the show, you're in Philly now, right?
I'm actually in South Jersey, but
South Jersey.
I'm like
Okay.
10 miles from Citizens Bank Park in Philadelphia. So I'm
Okay.
right at the state borderline there.
So you traded Cubs fans for Philly fans. How
Yeah.
is that treating? Has anyone thrown batteries at you or whatever the cliche of Philly fans is?
Not at all. It is much better, honestly, because like there's not the rivalry. And
Mm-hmm.
anytime I tell my neighbors that I'm a Cardinals fan, they're like, "Oh yeah, I don't really like feel anything specific towards the Cardinals." Like that's fine, that's cool.
Yeah,
And I feel
that's a
like
little bit of like a drag though too, isn't it? Because I bet there's a
it
lot of
is,
Cardinal
it
fans
is
who are like, fuck the Phillies, like boo Phillies,
totally yes.
and they're like, oh who? Oh, those guys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, but when you think about how Phillies fans are, they either like hate you or
Uh-huh.
they like don't care or they don't think about you if it's not the Phillies. So and really just in general, that's how they
Yeah.
are. So yeah, I wouldn't take it as harshly, but I know exactly what you mean. And honestly, I have loved a lot of the Phillies players for
Mm-hmm.
years. So I feel like it's an easy like there's no way I'm ever going to remotely root for the Cubs, like
Sure.
regardless of who they are playing. There's just no way. It's like the one fandom I cannot remotely associate with.
Yeah.
It's like absolutely against the religion of being a Cardinals
Of
fan.
course.
But I can be happy that the Phillies are going to get to play in October. And, at least I get to suck in some of that postseason excitement.
And their color's like kind of red too, so you can kind of
Oh,
feel
yeah.
like it's the Cardinals. Yeah, I have like some reserved fandom issues with the Phillies from back the last time they were really good, and there was kind of a rivalry
Mhm.
with the Cardinals. But generally, like Bryce Harper is one of my favorite players of all time,
Yeah.
and so I will always root for him. I like Trey Turner. It's an awesome team, obviously. So
Yeah, they
it's
have a
hard
lot of
not to
guys
root
who
for
are
him
really easy to
individually,
yeah, a lot of guys who are really easy to root for.
except for Kyle Schwarber. See, I can't. I know it's a whole new thing. He's a Philly, but like, I will never get over it.
Well, maybe I'll try to win you over on Kyle Schwarber a little bit later
I
on because
get
I've
it.
had to come around on
I
him.
get it, but when after that home run with the Cubs and they put the little thing over it I'm not making any sense. They put the little glass case over it
Yeah.
at Wrigley. It's too much fun. I don't like the Cubs having that much fun. It ruined him for me forever. He's probably a cool guy and he's having a great time with Philly. Everyone is, but I can't let it go, and I won't let it go. So good luck trying.
That's fair. We all have those players. I mean, for me, it's still one of them. I could think of many, but the
Sure.
one that instantly comes to my mind is Pablo Sandoval from the Giants.
Mm.
Like never. I will just I even saying his name was just
Uh,
hard to say it out of my mouth. So,
yeah.
whew, my body temperature is rising. Let's move on. We don't
Yeah.
need to talk
Okay.
about these kinds of players.
Yeah. Well, we got a packed show today, Kelsey. I've got a lot of stuff that I wanna talk through with you. So, your show, Peace, Love, and Baseball, it's awesome. If you're listening, you should go check it out if you haven't already. You on your most recent episode, you really dove into something that I think is one of the really cool things that baseball does. Something that really makes me a heart first fan at times, right?
Yeah.
It's the Roberto Clemente Award. And because Ben and I are like giant assholes, we've basically never talked about this on the show. But you spent your entire show talking about it, which I think is probably some cosmic evidence of the difference between us. But you spent an awesome time like talking about the award and breaking down some of the nominees and all of that. And so I thought, well, why don't I just steal her content by having her on the show and basically redo some of this, but for our listeners. So thank you for being here. I think probably most of our listeners know what the Roberto Clemente Award is, but if not, would you just give like a quick elevator pitch on the whole point of this thing?
Yeah, so per MLB.com, the Roberto Clemente Award is bestowed annually to the player who best represents the game of baseball through extraordinary character, community involvement, philanthropy, and positive contributions both on and off the field. So every year, Major League Baseball nominates a player from every team, and then one player, so not one for each league, just one player overall, wins the award. And it's a really cool opportunity to highlight the things that the players are doing off the field to contribute to the communities that they're playing in. And Roberto Clemente, of course, was an amazing on the field player and is known for many accomplishments. I mean, I think one season he hit like 414 or something.
Exactly
His career batting
3,000
average.
hits, which is my
yes, exactly 3,000
it's one of my
hits.
favorite baseball facts of all time.
So poetic. Yeah, I think his career batting average is like almost 320. He has great stats for the head first fan, right? Like he is somebody you can respect on the field game alone, but he also was an amazing humanitarian, and he just really had a heart for giving back in any way that he could. And when he was 38 years old, there was an earthquake in Nicaragua, and he had made a connection with the Nicaraguan people, and he had done a bunch of fundraising and huge efforts to deliver supplies to them in need. And unfortunately, he was killed in a plane crash while trying to deliver those supplies. So it was a really tragic end to obviously his playing career and his life. And this is the way that Major League Baseball and the world really honors his legacy. And that's just like, I mean, I feel like that's almost like such a weak, like nutshell way to try to articulate his impact, because he also, before any of that, like for the first few years, at least of his playing career, before he was really good, like he wasn't hitting 300 and the Pirates were terrible, but he was, facing racism for the first time in his life because he was from Puerto Rico, and he's coming over here dealing with the media treating him differently, and him having to, stay in different hotels and deal with just the way that he's being treated. And I think he got a really bad rap with the media and fans the first few years of his career, which I think is really interesting to learn more about, because we don't hear about that part of him, like in the legacy that he has left with his efforts and with this award being carried on. But he was actually looked at for a while as very like prideful and like he seemed entitled, but really once we came to know his heart and him more as a person, I think he felt that he was representative of the Puerto Rican people and just people who were different in any profession, but especially in Major League Baseball in this country. And he took it not personally for himself, but really as a way of like, the way that you're disrespecting him or the way that he's being treated is, he really took pride in representing his people and just other people who were different than everyone else who had played Major League Baseball up until that point. So I think because he was able to stick around and make such a great impact in the game on the field, we got to see more of that side of him and hear more of those stories about how, I mean, he would just make random connections with fans who weren't even baseball fans because they showed him a small act of kindness or solidarity. And he was just that kind of person that was so open and just led that way. Even when people weren't open to it at first. So I would encourage everyone to read a book, watch a documentary, find a podcast about him, because his legacy lives on in this award, but it's far deeper than what we can get into today.
Very good breakdown. Like you said, I mean, that's the top layer of the onion, right? You could go, or the top layer of the parfait, choose your layered metaphor. Incredible person. I mean, the fact that, he died supporting an earthquake in Nicaragua, at 38. I mean, I'm almost that age, and I think the closest I've come to Roberto Clemente is just talking about him on this podcast. So it's pretty amazing. And that early stuff about his career is really interesting too. You don't hear that as much, and I think even that, like calling him prideful and stuff, that's just an extension of racism as well, right? Where
absolutely,
they're just, it doesn't really matter what he's doing, they're going to find a way to have a problem with it. And it's pretty amazing to go through all that and come out the other side even more, into humanity and supporting it. I think it'd be I think a lot of people, I don't want to, you never want to paint with broad strokes here. And obviously I can't even begin to understand what they've gone through, but you think it would be pretty easy to come out the other end of that being pretty reserved and hateful, right? And arguably justifiably so. So the fact that he came out the other end of that even more helpful and wanting to improve, anyone and everyone around him is a credit. So yeah, in the grand scheme of things, it's a pretty minimal way to honor his legacy, but at least they're trying. And Roberto Clemente
having an award named after you is a pretty big deal.
The bridge
There's
too,
not a lot of
right?
them.
That's the
the bridge in Pittsburgh. So that beautiful iconic bridge that really makes PNC Park one of, if not the best ballpark, that is named after him as well. But I just think about, like, when I hear those stories from before he was, a really successful player, I think about how we might have missed out on even this all being highlighted from him if he didn't then have the success that he had on the field, right? Like, how many people are doing these kinds of things, how many players are doing these kinds of things, but because they're not great on the field, we're not necessarily hearing about it and they're not getting the spotlight. So that's another reason why I think this award is really cool, because there are guys like Paul Goldschmidt, who are nominated for this award that if you're not a Cardinals fan, you've probably heard of him. You've probably heard of Aaron Judge, who won it last year, but there are a lot of guys nominated that, like, otherwise you might not hear about. And I think that's reason enough that we should do it.
Yeah, and you made a point on your show too of like Mike Trout is one of the nominees, and the point you made was that you like Artie Moreno's money going to Mike Trout because we see what Mike Trout is doing with it, and and we know what Artie Moreno is doing with it. So, like, we're very pro pay the players on this show, and very anti the, like, they get paid what to hit a ball. It's like the money is there. And so I'd much rather be going to the people actually doing the work and playing the game. And we know that a lot of them will do something with it, like these guys.
Yeah. And I mean, back when Roberto Clemente was playing in the 1960s, it wasn't like he was making multi-millions of dollars either.
Yeah.
And he was still leading by example this way.
Yeah. So let's, I want to talk about some of the nominees. You already mentioned Paul Goldschmidt. So he was the nominee this year. Can you tell us a little bit about, like, why he was nominated?
Well, you may or may not know about all of the things that Paul Goldschmidt does in the community. You probably don't, because he's Paul Goldschmidt. He's like kicking around the dirt at first base. We have seen a lot more Paul Goldschmidt smiles lately. I'm not sure if that's just because he's finally kind of broke out of his funk a little bit, but
maybe just the season's almost over and he's like, this is
better enjoy it while I can.
Yeah.
But yeah, he just kind of quietly supports a wide array of charitable organizations. He does a lot of work with the YMCA and with youth organizations. He is the kind of guy too who not only makes financial contributions, like substantial financial contributions, but he also is on the ground, like showing up and running camps with these kids and showing up and working at soup kitchens and stuff like that. So he's even done stuff with ALS patients, like, kind of like Mike Trout, like I talked about on my episode, that he's involved with so many different things that it's hard to highlight just one, because he played for the Diamondbacks and he plays for the Cardinals, but he's traveling all over during the season, and on their off days, I mean, him and Kyle Gibson is another one, they're just quietly making a point to incorporate this stuff into their daily lives as much as they can, and they're actually, like, on the ground showing up and obviously writing the checks as well, which is awesome. But I think it shows a lot about their character that, they're not just giving the money away, but they're going to show up and make an impact, not because they're a celebrity, but because they're a person who is lucky enough to be able to do that.
Yeah. It's kind of like, I guess, him on the field too, kind of does a little bit of everything, right?
And it's like, Hope not me. Don't need no
don't look
curtain
at
call.
me.
Just doing my job.
Yeah, I'm sure in St. Louis he can't really just walk around and just be himself. I mean, first of all, he's a monster.
Yeah.
We forget how big all these people are, so he's just walking
Right.
around. And everyone's probably like, "Who's that guy?" But even in St. Louis, I think he's a celebrity. But I bet in a lot of this stuff that he's able to go to, he can just just be a guy there helping, which I'm sure he likes.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And I mean, it's just cool to know that like it seems like he's been doing this. Obviously, he makes a lot of money now, but he
Mm-hmm.
has been active and charitable since before he really got his bag, so to speak. And
Yeah.
there's a lot of the nominees this year who are also like they have yet to hit free agency. So and they're already finding ways. I know it's easy to say like my husband will be like, they're still making $700,000 a year. I'm like, yeah, but for how long? And like this
Right.
isn't,
Yeah, I mean, for a lot of these guys, they're spending their entire lives, their adolescence through college, for a couple years of extremely high pay, and that can be cool if you manage your money really well. But they're also surrounded by, uh, availability and excess, and easy ways to burn your cash. So we would all love, like if I had a year of 700K, that'd be pretty tight. But if you don't go and actually plan around it, if that was the end of your earnings was 1 year or
yeah.
maybe 2 years of 700K, you have to be really thoughtful about that.
And you've always gotta be thinking about it that way
Mm-hmm.
because, they are their product, and I like how Nolan Arenado comes to top of mind of someone who has never taken it for granted, and he'll share that, like, "I'm healthy now,"
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna play as hard as I can, and I wanna win now because who knows what's gonna happen next year, and
Right.
I think all of the most successful guys, in the way that they're able to show up on the field, but especially the way that they're able to show up off the field, have found this kind of balance of living in the moment and living for the moment,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that contributes to how they see the impact that they're able to make.
Yeah, it's an interesting balance too, because like it's like to have been able to reach that level. I think the vast majority of them also have to be like the single most competitive people on earth, you know?
Totally. Oh
And,
yeah.
and so if you're also highly competitive, then you also think you're going to win most of the time. So we see a lot of that, like the gambling on themselves, and so you can see how
Yeah.
some of these people will get themselves into these traps too, where they're like, well, yeah, I'm making 700K now. But I'm going to win an MVP when I'm 25 years old, and I'm going to
Yeah.
get $350 million. And
Oh
then,
man.
they don't. And
I
there
was
you go.
gonna win a Tony Award when I was 25 years old, but maybe now I've accepted when I'm, like, 75 years
Yeah,
old because that's when
the
I'm gonna hit
third
my
act.
peak age, so,
Yeah, the
yeah.
third act. That's where I'm leaning as well.
But for them, yeah, they have this really specific window of time too that they can capitalize on what they can do both on and off the field.
Yeah.
And actually, that you bring up a great point that Marcus Simeon is a nominee this year for the Texas Rangers, and he had some really specific initiatives for giving coaching and resources for financial things
Hmm.
to up and coming youth athletes and stuff like that, which is something that again could be an absolute game and life changer in a lot of situations, but you don't necessarily think
Yeah.
about. So I thought that was a unique one.
Well, and that, I mean, we can soapbox for a while, but that is just a problem across like the
Oh
education
yeah.
system in general, right?
Yeah, I
Like,
mean, I don't need to be an athlete. Sign us all up. We all,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah,
we all need to know who taught Marcus Simeon how to manage his money
yeah,
because,
yeah.
yes, it is.
Well, speaking of managing money, time for you to put your GM hat on here, and got to ask you. We've been talking about him. Everyone's talking about this, so I got to ask you, where are you in the bring back Paul Goldschmidt debate? How do you feel about
Ooh.
it?
You know what? I could take it or leave it.
Mm,
I'm not like I would like to see him back because he feels like such a staple
hmm.
of the community at this point,
Sure.
honestly. And I think the same way that like it sucks that Brandon Crawford couldn't just finish his career with the Giants, I think it
Hmm.
would feel similar to that, similar enough to that. But so I guess what I'll say is that if it's at the right price, I think why not?
Yeah.
but that, all depends on if they can come to an agreement, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, I kind of feel the same way. It does kind of, it's the really, boring but true answer of like, how much does it cost?
Yeah.
How long is it? And what kind of role is he expected to be in? Because,
Mm-hmm.
I think something Ben has said many times is that like, we're going to hate it to watch him hit 25 home runs for the New York Yankees, right? So it's like,
Yeah.
it's that or he's with the Cardinals. And it's like, well, when you put it that way, it's like, I definitely want him to stay a Cardinal. And I think he probably gets the Yachty and Waino treatment of the 1-year deals or 1 year and an option or something like that.
And Yachty and Waino are former, or they have won the Roberto Clemente Award. So yeah, he's part of that legacy for many reasons. I actually think we should fact check me on this actually, but I'm pretty confident that the Cardinals have the most the Cardinals have won the most Roberto Clemente awards. There's 6 Cardinals that have won the Roberto Clemente Award. So,
nice. Well, that's cool. I won't live fact check you because I want that to be true. And in this moment, it's true. Either way, it's true for us.
Can I tell you about a couple others that I think are particularly cool?
Please.
Nominees this year.
Yeah.
Well, one is Liam Hendriks, which, we've heard a lot about from his struggles and his illness the past year. But I really loved how he shared with Jen McCaffrey, who covers the Red Sox for The Athletic. She was like, how do you keep your spirit up? Like, where does this come from? And he was quoted saying, "It's not that hard, just don't be a dick." And I really loved that because that's the kind of spirit that I want from these guys. Like, I'm in this situation where I can do a lot of good for someone, and of course I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
But he does all kinds of things, like all kinds of diverse events specifically to inspire kindness. That's kind of his personal thing that he likes to do, from hosting events for Chicago's Ukrainian village community that has become like a refuge for many families throughout the war. He works with local children's hospitals. He supports first responders in the community. And obviously he's become very active with meeting and offering encouragement and experiences to cancer patients, even through his own diagnosis and treatment. But the last one I want to tell you about is your guy, Kyle Schwarber. Because he's a good dude. Gotta go with my hometown guy here.
All right. I maybe you separate the art from the artist. Maybe I can separate the dingers from the doinkers. I don't know. Please go on.
I think that's a good analogy. We were almost there. He has a foundation that he started in 2017 with his wife called Schwarber's Neighborhood Heroes. So it's not called like Donuts for Dingers or anything like that. Don't worry, you can attach it. But they use their foundation to express
Donuts
gratitude.
For Dingers sounds pretty good too, though.
That's true. We could get a lot of people on board with that, I'm sure. But they use it to express gratitude for first responders, military personnel, and their families. So all kinds of positive experiences and funds for wellness, education, and crisis needed for heroes and their families. And they throw a big block party fundraiser every year that just seems, again, like similar to Paul Goldschmidt. Like, this guy is on the ground with fans, like at the Wawa, which is like the gas stations here, and just at firehouses, like throwing events. Like, he shows up and he's just a guy in these places, which I think is something that Philly really takes to heart and is really important to them, the kind of people here and what they want to see from like a hometown hero. But it's very personal for him, which I think is also cool when there's like a personal tie to the cause. Kyle's mom was a nurse. His sister was in the Army. And he says, like, if he wasn't a baseball player, he would definitely be a first responder. So I think it's cool that it's something that he's had a tie to kind of his whole life. And there's, lots of different ways that you can make an impact. And I guess when you're a guy like Paul Goldschmidt and you have the money to dole out and the capacity that he seems to have on and off the field, he just makes really ridiculously hard things look easy, then maybe your reach can be far and wide. But I think it's also cool on the other side of it to have like a very specific initiative that you're pouring your efforts into. So we see all of it with these nominees.
Yeah, I mean, that all sounds really cool and everything, but he hit a really dramatic home run against the Cardinals in the playoffs. And so, I'm glad he's out there doing cool stuff. This does sound wonderful. I can acknowledge that he seems like a really nice guy, and what a great cause. But
I'm just really glad he's not on the Cubs anymore, because
yeah.
when my husband first moved to Chicago to be with me, he was working at Wrigley Field for a few
Wow.
months.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. And
Trouble at home.
he came to that was the true test of our relationship, right? He came to love Kyle Schwarber,
Sure.
and I was really, really not okay with it. And
Mhm.
since Kyle Schwarber is now on the
He's
Phillies,
following you.
I have agreed to be in support of
I
his
guess
Kyle
you're
Schwarber
following
campaign.
him. He went to Philly first. So did you
Yes.
follow? Yeah. Okay.
Yes. Now, especially now that we're here, I'm like, okay, I can't tell you can't be a Kyle Schwarber fan
Well, we
when
all
all
love
of
the
our
long
neighbors
ball,
are going to
and
get
he's
mad at me.
particularly good at it. So you love the three true outcome player, right? They're going to strike out, they're going to walk, or they're going to hit a dinger, and he's pretty much perfected it. Leadoff hitter, going to hit 40 bombs. It's an incredible combination.
Kyle Schwarber and Shohei Ohtani.
Yeah, right. Were there any other people you wanted to highlight, or should we move on?
I would just encourage everybody to, I could ramble on about Stephen Kwan, who is incredibly awesome at chess, and that's a big part of his mental game on and off the field. But he has used it as a way to connect with a school that was founded by refugees. So a lot of them don't know anything about baseball in the Cleveland community. So they have no idea who he is. And he has helped their chess club, and again provided them with additional resources and done fundraisers and stuff for these schools, and just shared again something that's a very personal love of his. I think that's so cool,
Yeah.
because it's not only is it giving in the sense of your time and your money, but your willingness to be vulnerable,
Mm-hmm.
and with what little personal time they do have to share that part of yourself with a community where it can make a difference too. So that was another really cool one. Marcus Stroman, I know mixed feelings about him across the board, but he does amazing charitable efforts with his foundation that he started again in 2018, before he was really making the big bucks. And he's carried it with him from, no matter where he gets traded, no matter who he's playing for. So that's just to name a few, but the MLB does a really good job of outlining each of the nominees and a nice little bio write-up about their efforts. And I think it's a cool way for people who may want to be involved in their communities to just get an idea, right? Because sometimes the hardest thing is, this is something that Roberto Clemente was so amazing for too, was he mentored other players on how to give back, on how to be charitable. And we see Adam Wainwright doing that now, which is a huge reason of why he is such a deserving winner of that award. So yeah, I think it's important even just for all of us to be able to see ways to do it, because it's easy to sit back and just be like, I want to help people, but how? And it seems so overwhelming and so daunting. So just gives you a little inspiration.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you for coming on and highlighting all of it. It is pretty incredible. So another thing you did on your show, because your show covers, you're obviously a Cardinal fan and you talk about the Cardinals a lot, but you try to talk about the entire league to some degree and be available for all listeners. And you went through the exercise of going through all the worst teams in the league and talking about why you should still watch them, or why you might still have fun as a fan. And that's something that Ben and I have been talking about on recent episodes too, of this season sucks. It's a bad season, but we're still big baseball fans and we're big Cardinal fans, and we're still watching because we're still having a great time. So I was just curious, as a Cardinal fan, what's keeping you watching the Cardinals right now? What has you still excited to at least try and watch the game, which we'll also talk about in a second.
Yeah, well, I think we talked about this a bit last year too, as I actually was pleasantly surprised, I guess as pleasantly surprised as I could have been last season with as bad as they were. I mean, there is not a time in my life, in our lives, where they have been that hard to watch.
Yeah.
But I still couldn't look away. Not because it was like watching a car wreck, but because I just was like, I still care so much.
Right.
And I am attached to the individual players as much as I am the team as a whole. So I think that's kind of the easiest answer to it, is if you can be a fan first, or I'm sorry, a player first fan at this point in the season, it helps because you're, invested every time Thomas Saggese is going to come up to the plate, and you want to see if McGreevy is going to get a start. And you want to see every time Ryan Helsley gets a chance to have a save, even if it's so frustrating and they're playing another freaking 1-run game. Are you kidding me? But at least he's getting to get another save under his belt and work towards that record too. So there's always something. There's so many aspects of this game. It could be Lance Lynn hitting, he had his 2000th career strikeout a month or so ago. He made his 100th career appearance at Busch Stadium 3 yesterday. Stuff like that. Like there's always a reason to watch. And I mean, we brought Big City Matt Adams back tonight. The Cardinals are pulling another retirement out, and
the one we've all been waiting for.
Oh man, yeah. So I don't know. For me, it's not hard because as much as I don't even know when it was that I accepted that they weren't going to make the playoffs. Probably this series when they got swept by the Reds was like,
that was a bad
really
one.
When I had to know. There was a sense of, oh, this is who this team is, and I need to accept it before then.
Eric Fetty is not Gandalf on the horse cresting the hill to save Helm's Deep.
Which actually, since you mentioned Eric Fetty, do you know you forgot to mention him last week when you were talking about, you guys named every single player who is currently with the organization that could probably be in the starting rotation next year, but you did not name Eric Fetty, which I was sitting at work listening to this, and I'm like, this is how irrelevant Eric Fetty is, and this is why the Dodgers have already won the Tommy Edman trade, because Ben and Nate don't even know that Eric Fetty is still on the team.
In our defense, we never said we were good at this. So you're expecting too much, and I did not ask you to come on this show to fact check me live in front of everybody, Kelsey.
I'm just really trying to Tommy Edman truth. That is my one true intention.
It's fair, and that is hilarious that we did not mention Fetty, a guy we were actually very excited to acquire and still think he will be good next year.
Yes. And that's the thing, is like, it's also exciting to start to think about next year. And I don't know, do you feel, here's where I'm having a tougher time, is I think I felt actually more excited at this point last year because I was thinking, oh man, it's going to be a big, exciting offseason. Like there needs to be an overhaul here. There's going to be all kinds of moves, all kinds of things to anticipate. But this season, I think this is kind of the worst possible outcome because they were better than last year.
Yeah.
They lost a lot of 1-run games. They also won even more 1-run games. So, but I guess I just I don't trust the powers that be enough to say that I think ultimately we're going to get that canned response of we took a step in the right direction, and this is maybe not going to be so different. So I don't know that I'm overly excited about what to anticipate in the offseason.
Yeah. I mean, if you look under the hood just a little bit, those underlying numbers, you'll see too that this year they weren't really much of a better team than last year. Kind of, you were saying that too with the winning the 1-run games. It's more or less the same team skill level as last year. They just had some better luck. And I mean, I think last offseason, we were really, really excited about the Sonny Gray signing and still maintain that. But ultimately, the end of that offseason was sort of like the final nail in the coffin for my expectation of this version of the front office group ever really doing a big all-in, we want to win and we want to win right now move, which I have said before, you don't usually want your organization in that like exactly in that mindset,
Sure.
because you also are prone to mistakes. We see the Padres do it every year, although they're about to make the playoffs. So what do we know? But like I think we've always wanted a little bit more. We don't necessarily want them to do the all in, we're trading all the top prospects, but we just want to see like some more urgency, and maybe not just Eric Fetty at the trade deadline when you're in a playoff spot, and of course, trading away our one true love at Tommy Edman. I mean, what were we thinking there, right?
A true sacrifice was made.
Yeah. So
no, I could not agree with that more.
I think this offseason to me is interesting because it certainly seems like it's probably the last with John Mozeliak, and it might not even be him really this offseason. We're getting really mixed signals. So I'm wondering if this is really just the beginning of the transition, and there is still that uncertainty about the streaming rights and all of that, and so the organization has been signaling that they're going more conservative right now while all of this gets settled. So there's a bunch of money coming off the books, and the Cardinals have an interesting balance in the farm system right now. So I don't want to say it's completely out of the realm of possibility that we have like a fun and interesting offseason. But I'm kind of over predicting that because we are just let down every single year.
Yeah, I just really thought we would see more this past offseason. And as much as my heart loves Lance Lynn and Kyle Gibson,
sure,
I was as put off as anybody that we have like 4 number 5 starters in the rotation. Like it's brutal. And I have a really hard time thinking that that's not going to be exactly what we walk into again next season. So I'm trying not to get my hopes up for the off season too much, but even without that, I guess back to your initial point, I think there's still plenty of reasons to turn on the game every night. I mean, watching Michael Ciani play in center field, he is like a human highlight reel out there, and he's a guy there's all these guys that like we don't know if we'll see them play with the Cardinals again. I mean, Lance Lynn may have pitched his last inning with the Cardinals ever, and he's somebody who's probably Cardinals Hall of Fame, so,
I think so.
There's always reasons to tune in like that for the individual guys. And because I learned a lot from my Reds fan friend John when he told me that he's about the same age as me, so he's grown up like just with the Reds sucking his whole life. And he told me even when they're bad, which is most of the time, I still get to see them win like at least 60 times.
Yeah.
And I was like,
unless you're a White Sox fan, most teams win 60 games.
Yes. At least we're not White Sox fans. That's what this is really about.
Could always be worse.
But I thought that was a really good perspective because that is different than other sports. I mean, there's football teams that only see their team win 2 or 3 times a season. And I'm not sure if you're familiar with David Sampson, who's the former president of the Miami Marlins, but he does a daily show now called Nothing Personal with David Sampson about like sports business and all this stuff.
Yes, I think you've pointed. He the one. He did a really good breakdown of the Trevor Bauer situation when he was. Yes. You pointed us to that, and I listened, and I've checked in on the show since.
Yeah,
then.
He's excellent with stuff like that, just presenting things in a really objective way. And the thing that he has said about the baseball season specifically is that he can never like work as an executive in any other sport because the only way that you can deal with all the losses is the fact that there's another game the next day. So like you sit with it. You can't let it get to you because every day is another opportunity. And I feel that as a fan too. Yeah. Do you? Are you still watching?
Oh yeah. I'm still watching. Yeah. I mean, I'm always gonna watch. I'm gonna watch spring training. I'm in. I mean, we're baseball podcasters. If they lose us, there's something completely collapsing. But yeah, I mean, you definitely. I think the transition from the team fan to the individual player fan just becomes more and more and more of a thing when you get into these periods. So Like you mentioned Siani, what a revelation, what a bright spot from this whole season. All of a sudden, the Cardinals have maybe their new center fielder of the future, and he might be the best in the league, which is incredible. Like, who saw that coming? And then you pair him with Mason Wynn, and you start to say, like, wow, we're like back on the path of being one of these defensive elite teams, which has been a hallmark of Cardinal baseball for a long time. So that's been fun. And then I'm so ready to love Jordan Walker again. He's got 4 home runs this year. They've all come in September. And I know that there's a lot of swing and miss in there still, but he's got 4 bombs this month, and he had 0 through the rest of the season. So I'm back. It's not going to take much for me to just love watching Jordan Walker play. I'm watching him. Like you said, JC. There's just, if you're a long-term fan, which if you're listening to this show, you probably are, that you're not just looking at the game today, you're looking at like the broader context of the Cardinals and what are we maybe going to see next year. Mason Wynn has said
Libby from the pen. A revelation.
He's been awesome. Mason Wynn has said that, and many people have said that, if it wasn't for the last 2 months of last year, really the last month where there was no pressure and he just got to come up and frankly be kind of bad for a month and it not really matter, was the platform that set him up for his breakout year this year. And I think Mason Wynn is right there with Siani, even more so probably in the eyes of most fans, of like, oh my God, like, extend this guy. He's Ozzie Smith, he's the guy. And so there's always these fun things. And the Cardinals are bad this year, but they're not so bad that it's just completely unenjoyable to watch. So I'm going to watch, even if they win, if they were the White Sox, if they were having a White Sox season, I'd still be watching. So
I think I would too. And maybe that makes us fools, but I don't know. I love the game, and I don't know. Do you follow players like that you get attached to on the Cardinals? Is that something that you enjoy doing? Like, will you watch players specifically in the postseason, or how do you kind of pick which postseason games you're going to watch?
Well, so I'm also a huge fantasy baseball fan too, which colors my entire like fandom of baseball. And so that is also something that just in and of itself makes you a fan of individual players.
Definitely.
And I can watch any game. I watch a lot of baseball that's not the Cardinals, but I do find myself also like sort of flipping around, looking for interesting matchups that match up with my teams and stuff like that. So it does make me follow individual players from a like on the field standpoint. Off the field, I don't get into it too much because I'm just not a huge social media guy anymore, and that's really like the best path to follow it. But I try to learn about my favorite players and see what kind of person they are to some degree.
Yeah, I think that's been a really easy way for me to stay excited through the end of the season too. Whether it's, obviously I'm always going to try to watch the Cardinals first. Sometimes I can't because MLB TV decides I'm blacked out of different things every day, which is a problem. And you, I know, are a big advocate of that problem here on the show. So thank you for giving me a platform to speak about it.
This is what we're really here to talk about. 40 minutes in, MLB TV is trash, but
yes, we had to give a hateful fish shake to MLB TV, but I think it's cool too that there's going to be all these former Cardinals that are in the playoffs, and I don't understand how people get like upset and hate to see players who have left doing well on other teams. Like, I totally get it if you're like, this was a bad trade, and it hurts to see that because he could have been doing this for us to some extent. But like, especially once the Cardinals are out of it, like, let Adolis Garcia go hit bombs and win the first World Series ever for the Texas Rangers. Like, that's pretty freaking cool. And it's not like he beat the Cardinals doing it. It's not like it was a Kyle Schwarber moment. So I don't know.
I agree 100%. I'm pretty much a fan of, I don't know, every player to some degree. Like, I have my thing, there's the rivalry stuff, but I just like watching people be good at baseball. So I'll put on any playoff game because it's the highest stakes and everyone's trying their hardest. And I like it all. I watch a ton of the playoffs. I watch a ton of, I follow it all. If it's baseball, I'm probably watching it.
Are there any starts that you think we're going to see from players who have not started yet for the Cardinals this year?
Oh, like still a few more call up or something that we haven't seen yet, or
yeah, or just like they're using the 6-man rotation. I guess. Do you think anyone besides Matz, Michaelis, Lynn, Gibson, Gray, Fetty are going to start before the end of the season?
Maybe. I would love. You mentioned it already. I'd love more McGreevy or Graceffo. They might be waiting for the minor league playoffs to be over.
Oh yeah.
But I really would have thought if any of those guys were going to get more starts, it would have happened like 2 weeks ago to give them a couple rounds through
They
the.
were still in contention, Nate.
Yeah, well, you got
We
to win
weren't
those minor
ready.
league championships. There's nothing more important than those. So, yeah, I mean, again, I would love to see that. I was really hoping for a Tink Hence or even like Quinn Matthews. I mean, I know it's come out of
Yeah.
nowhere this year, but teams have done that with these sorts of breakouts where they just cruise all the way through the minors in a single year and end the season in the MLB. Like I know that's not the Cardinal way at all, but I
No.
really was hoping for a Quinn Matthews start. But at this point, with like 10 games left, I'd be kind of surprised if we get anything else than what we've been getting for the last 3 weeks. But I certainly would love it. Hence, Matthews, McGreevy, Graceffo, anybody, just to end the season on like, well, hopefully a positive note. I guess if they get lit up, it might not feel great, but something of like, this is what this is what next year might look like.
Hint of what might be to come. Yeah. I guess, do you see any other things, like what are they going to pull out here to get people to show up in the last 10 games of the season, or even just the last few games of the season? Because I went to the last 2 games of the season last year, and it was the Waino retirement tour, which you think would have been enough to like pack the stands, but it still really wasn't. It was a fair turnout, but not like it normally is.
Well, I've got a segment on this later, but if you look at their website, it's pretty much all about theme nights. So they're really hoping that the last bobblehead or whatever is good.
Right.
I don't think they planned, even though they should have. I don't think. I think the Matt Adams retirement. I wouldn't be surprised if it was actually the Cardinals who initiated the Matt Adams one-day signing to retire at Busch Stadium thing.
Yeah, that was one of the least surprising things I've seen come across social media in a while.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, there's other I've got a little list of some of the Cardinal news here. Maybe having Arenado get stung by a bee in the middle of a game was a clever ploy by the marketing department. What do you think?
It could have been. You never know. I had a bee that was flying around me. I was eating my lunch outside today, and I was thinking about Nolan Arenado the whole time.
Yeah, I mean, what are the odds? As he said, only in 2024, he gets stung by a bee in the middle of a game in his glove. Nightmare.
Yeah, it's crazy that it got stuck in there.
Yeah.
And that's what I was thinking, is like, it's going to get stuck in my shirt or something. They like to hide out, apparently.
Ben, highly allergic to bees. So if anyone out there...
My husband is too.
Yeah. Oof. Do you carry the EpiPen around with you and all that? Or
especially if we're like going on hikes or something. Yeah.
So if anyone is listening and can find Ben on the beach, all you need is just a little bit of a little bee sting, and he's
just
done.
Like Tyler O'Neill in Peanuts. Like, looks like a really big, tough dude, but
well, it's the nicest thing anyone's ever said to Ben. This is a slight comparison to Tyler O'Neill.
I didn't mean it that way, but
okay, good. Take it back, please. Thank you.
He can take it however he wants.
All right, we're gonna move into some of the back half of the show stuff, Kelsey. But before we do, I want you to take a moment to just sort of plug your show. If people want to hear more from you, what's the best way for them to follow you and learn more about your content?
Yeah, well, I, like you, Nate, am not super great on the social media. I try, but I guess I'm old. I don't know. It's just not my favorite thing ever, but I do live tweet most of the games. And I think that's a really fun way also to our conversation that we were having before this, a way to stay invested. And it's made me sad that there's been less interaction on Cardinals Twitter lately. So you can follow me on Twitter at KBurdTweets. That's KBURD tweets. And if you're not into Twitter, my podcast, Peace, Love, and Baseball, is on YouTube. There's a Facebook page called Peace, Love, and Baseball. And there's an Instagram account at peace.love.baseball. Basically, if you search Peace, Love, and Baseball, I'll probably come up on your favorite podcast platform. But if you do find me on Twitter, there's a link tree that will be in my bio that you can follow and find the podcast everywhere that it's at, which is on all those places that I just mentioned. So, yeah.
Awesome. Well, yeah, highly recommend Kelsey's show. You do it by yourself, which is still just an incredible, like that just seems impossible to me. So
sometimes it works out better than others. I'm an actor, so I can play, both sides of the mask, I guess. But I also have a lot of guests. I've done a lot of team feature episodes this year, which have been really cool that I would encourage people to like go back and listen to, maybe even over the off season, because I brought someone who either covers the team or is like a diehard lifelong fan of the team on for all the teams that I did a feature on. So it's not just me like doing, Googling what I can find out about the team. It's listening to me ask, deep questions about the culture around these teams to people who are fans like you and Ben are, and just can talk about it and tell us about it, kind of take us a peek behind the curtain, a day in the life of a Boston Red Sox fan or something like that. So that's been super fun. And yeah, there's all kinds of good stuff. Something for everybody.
Yeah, you had I was frankly jealous of you. You had Nick Pollock, who is the brains behind Pitcher List, one of my favorite baseball websites, on your show, and it was a great episode.
Yes, he's somebody I could talk to for hours. I'll have to circle back and bring him in again. I'm going to recap my first fantasy baseball experience with him now that I kind of maybe have the slightest grasp on what is going on. So he's going to help me be even more competitive next year, though. So watch out, Bird Scored.
And there will be another year next year. And what a perfect segue. Kelsey participated in our Bird Scored Fantasy Baseball League, which we are now to the semifinals. I have fought my way through, and I'm still in it. I won last year, and I took down Ryan's team. It was a very good team, better than mine, but the fantasy playoffs are a crapshoot, and my dice roll was slightly better than his. So now I have to take on those damn beefy boys who won the league as far as the regular season goes. So we're down to it the last 2 weeks of the year here, but if you want to maybe participate in the league next year or get into the Discord, it's our private Discord server where we are chatting about baseball, chatting about the Cardinals. It runs all year. I personally think it's better than social media, but if you're interested in joining this, you can check out our Patreon, patreon.com/talkingaboutbirds. It's a great way to support the show. You can also leave us a review on your favorite podcast platform. You can find us on most of the social media that we're not the best at posting, like Kelsey was saying, but most of it's either at Talk About Birds or at Talking About Birds, because we're so bad at it. We're so bad at it that we have different handles depending on character limits. You can find us on YouTube as well. And if you have a question or a comment or want to roast one of us or make a suggestion for the opening bit, you can call our voicemail. It's 848-48-BIRDS. You can also text message us there. We got a fantastic text message from our Canadian correspondent, Mike, who sends deeply Canadian text messages to us and reminding us that he's going to be in Colorado for the series this upcoming week. And we had made a promise on a previous episode that we would give a breakdown of things to do in Colorado because Ben is there. And because we are bad at this, we kind of forgot that Ben was going to be out of town the week of when that would be the ideal time to record it. So I think we can still do the series sort of blends into our next week's episode. So I think we'll still do something there for you, Mike. But hopefully we haven't hopefully you weren't putting your vacation in the hands of us in the first place.
I've only been there once. I'm not going to be much help there.
Yeah, I've been a lot, but it's really Ben is the one that should be, I just follow him around as much as I hate to say it. But so we'll dig into that next week. But Mike, thanks for the message. So again, that's 848-48-BIRDS. Cardinals have just a couple series, really just a few series left. Coming up, they've got 3 games in Busch against the Cleveland Guardians. I like the Guardians. I think a lot of us here in the Midwest really connect with all these other Midwest teams, and I think the Guardians are doing it really, really well. Jose Ramirez, one of my favorite players, like the most underrated Hall of Fame player in baseball right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how do you feel about the Guardians, Kelsey?
Well, they're a team that's easy for me to root for too. My husband is from Cleveland, so we
Nice.
actually met right when they were playing the Cubs in the World Series in 2016. So it was the perfect time for me to kind of adopt them as my American League allegiance. So yeah, I love to see them do well. I think the way that they've done it, to your point, is really fun to watch too. And Stephen Vogt is, I think, easily manager of the year for the American League this year. I certainly hope so, as a guy who was really fun to watch as a player and just a great personality in the game. It's really cool to see how he has stepped into the legacy of Terry Francona and really just made the most of it so quickly. So yeah, I think it's gonna be fun to watch for some good baseball, at least from one team, hopefully from both teams. And it's crazy that we haven't played them yet.
Yeah, and they are in first place in the American League Central. So they're looking to cap off a great season. They're at 88 wins right now, so we'll see if they can break the 90 win mark against the Cardinals. But they're kind of a team that'll kill you in a bunch of different ways. They've got some good starting. The starting pitching hasn't been as good as it has been in years past. Shane Bieber missing the entire season. Tristan McKenzie struggling a little bit, but they still have some really, really strong pitchers. And then obviously I already said Jose Ramirez, Stephen Kwan, Andres Jimenez. They're a good team. So this would
Josh
be
Naylor.
Josh
They
Naylor
found
having a real
power this year
breakout.
too.
Yeah.
I think that's like the biggest difference of the Guardians from last year versus this year is they have multiple guys who have hit over 20 home runs. Last year, I think their outfield combined for like the least home runs from an outfield among all baseball teams. And so that's been like a real game changer for them this season.
Josh Naylor having a true breakout season. I think he just hit his 30th bomb today or last night. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I've always loved the Guardians. And, we're in that weird spot right now where we actually don't really want the Cardinals to win games. Like if you're really taking the long-term view on it. So I don't really feel that way. I still like to watch winning games, but when they're playing against another team that I like, that is, something like this, I'm like, it's all right. We can lose a few to the Guardians. Let them seal the, finish off the season in a positive way. After
Is there
that,
a chance that will they clinch the division potentially? I'm not sure. I haven't looked at what
that's a good
their
question
magic number is, but that's one thing I don't know how I feel about. Like, I do love watching those celebrations, but for them to happen,
you don't like it at Busch. Yeah. You don't want to see it at Busch.
It just like really twists the knife,
Yeah. Like, oh man, they're having a lot of fun. We could be having fun like this right now, but we're not.
Yeah. Well, we're not even.
They're 5.5 up on KC, so probably not with like 10 games left to go, but maybe the last game
postseason berth, but
that's definitely possible. So after that, the Cardinals go to Denver. For several years in a row now, I've traveled to Denver to go to the games, and just the scheduling of it this year with more on my side with the trips that I've had. I just couldn't make it happen this year. So I'm a little bummed to miss them. It would be great if they wouldn't have made this series in Denver the last week of the season. But it is what it is. The Rockies are trash. We talk a lot about them on the show. I don't think there's too much more to be said about them. They're bad, but a game at Coors Field is always beautiful, and I'm hoping for a 475-foot bomb from Jordan Walker at Coors Field. That's what I'm looking for in this series.
That's what you're looking for. I'm looking for some more Pedro Pages homers. I've been eating that up, man.
Yeah, that's a great point. That's a good stadium for him too, to just crush one when he gets a hold of one. It's that launch angle. He torches them. So that's a good one. We'll see a 475 from Walker, but it'll be a little bit more of a line drive 475, and Pages is going to hit like a 500-foot towering, into the trees there in the center. So we're playing a really good team and then a really bad team. Kind of doesn't really matter what the outcomes are, but hopefully we get some fun baseball over the next week.
Might see some old friends. Do we think Dakota Hudson gets a start against the Cardinals? You never know.
Well, that would certainly aid in our desire to see very long home runs.
Yes, exactly.
I don't know. Gomber is still pitching for them too. That's a bit of an older, it's a deeper reference, but he's out there too. So with where all of our sinker balling, pitchers go to in their career, I guess.
Was it you guys? Were you guys talking about like Miles Michaelis going?
Oh God, yes, we did. Yeah,
that was you.
yeah, yeah.
I'm pretty sure I heard someone suggest that and
it's
sounded interesting.
I wish that upon no one. Okay, Kelsey, I want to run through a couple things of league news, and then I got a little game for you. Of course, I do, and then we're gonna end this in this episode. So, Ben was giving me shit on the last episode that I wasn't on because he said I never contribute to the league news, and I want to say that's bullshit because here I am right now doing the whole thing all by myself. So, go eat sand, Ben.
Ever.
Yeah. All right. Craig Kimbrell has been designated for assignment by the Orioles.
Yeah.
I think he's probably future Hall of Fame too.
Yeah.
This is unfortunately the way the careers tend to end for most pitchers. I think most guys don't get to walk out like Adam Wainwright. Most are DFA'd and then we celebrate them later. But it's always strange when you see someone of his caliber to be DFA'd from a fantastic team.
Yeah, it's an unfortunate part of the game that is just a part of the game. But he is actually one of those guys for me. There's probably like, I don't know, less than 5 guys, definitely less than 10, that if I see them in person, I'm like a little fangirly. Like you're like, and I don't know why he is specifically for me, but I sat in the bird bath out at Camden Yards a few weeks ago and we're right next to the bullpen. And I was like geeking out that I'm like, I'm this close to Craig Kimbrell.
Yeah.
So yeah, if nothing else, it's just a bummer that this is kind of the way that it goes, but it doesn't take away from his amazing career. And
well, I doubt he's done. We'll see. But I bet he gets he probably goes again next year. I bet if he gets DFA'd again, he's probably done. But he was actually pretty good for the first half of this season. He was their closer and a major part of their success for like half the year. So I could see him saying like, it didn't end well, but I still got it or something like that. So I would be surprised if he's done, but he might be done on a team like the Orioles. Like he'll be, he'll be with the Rockies next year or something, just trying to
come on over to the Cardinals. He's prime age.
Yeah. Right. Oh yeah. He'd be the young guy in the room. I'm sure he wants a few more saves, a few more strikeouts, pad those legacy numbers and maybe one more playoff run or something to really, really seal the deal. I thought this was kind of fun. Luis Angel Acuna was promoted by the Mets. That's Ronald Acuna's little brother, and he had a big home run. So I don't know. I always think that's kind of fun. And this kid's been working his way through the minor leagues for quite a while now. He got signed when he was like 16 or something. So he's been around, and so it's always fun to see a late promotion, and it's an Acuna. So he doesn't have to even be nearly as good as Ronald to be a star.
Yeah,
so we'll see.
Really good. Yeah. I don't know. How do you feel about the Mets this year? Are you like on the Grimace OMG train at all?
Well, considering I share a podcast with Grimace himself, it's made me. It's made me, dislike the Mets. I don't know. The Mets are another team that I just love to hate. They're so easy to make fun of. There's the Cardinal Mets thing that's gone forever. It's another one I do like some of their players. Francisco Lindor is incredible. I'm a huge fan of him. But then they also have the big tough guy, Pete Alonso, who's super easy to hate also. So, I don't know. And then I love their owner's actions, but I hate him, and so I have like all of my feelings about money and how, it's immoral to be a billionaire and all that are wrapped up exactly in him, but he's also kind of the type of owner I wish every owner would be, where they just spend to win, so.
Right. Well, it's cool that he's a fan, right? Yes. Like he is genuinely a fan. That's the thing that I think is like commendable about him, and his actions show that. How he's able to do that.
He should probably be in prison, but
we don't love that. But usually, the way that I felt about the Mets last year and the way I feel about them this year is like a total 180, because the thing that I can get behind more this year is because of their frivolous spending without any strategy last season, they had to actually be kind of strategic in in line with the money, serious money that they have put up. And when you put those things together, just like the Padres had to do this season too, it actually makes for a better product on the field.
Yeah.
Imagine that. So my biggest critique of them last season was that it lacked the strategy, and it was just all like, who can we pay the most money to and have the super team or whatever. So I like to see that they're doing better than last season. And yeah, love Harrison Bader, love Jose Quintana. Again, my former Cardinals. Love Francisco Lindor. Those guys are really easy to root for. And Jose Iglesias, not only do I love that song and love fun, but he is having a great season and being like a huge contributor, and his story is so cool. I mean, so you love to see those kind of underdog players have success too. So my hope for the Mets is that they have like, they get into the postseason, they have some fun and excitement, but like, of course I don't want to see them, like actually.
We don't want them anywhere close to the championship, but And I was
like
going to bring up the Jose Iglesias thing too, if you hadn't. Like I, it's not necessarily my cup of tea musically, but I just like, it's just fun. And I'm always impressed by these, like the same thing with Wayne, right? We kind of make fun of his music in a loving way. It's kind of how I feel about Jose Iglesias. I'm truly impressed by these guys that are both world-class athletes and have even a smattering of interest in creating music, let alone any talent,
and the capacity to do it. I mean, I might turn on OMG in the car when I'm in a bad mood or stuck in traffic. Like I might.
I get it. It's a catchy song. And it's fun to watch him running around on the field. I'm assuming lip syncing it, but either way, it doesn't really matter.
It's kind of like Love is Blind, like the reality TV show. Like I'm very embarrassed. Like it's a guilty pleasure. I'm embarrassed to admit that sometimes I just need to watch something that like just lets me turn my brain off and be a little ashamed. It's kind of like that, but I'll tell you that I love it.
Yeah. I mean, we're having fun, right? And that's ultimately the point of most of this. So I got one last one for you, Kelsey. This is the one this is specifically here for you. Tommy Edman is back in baseball in over 26 games. That's actually not including today's game where he did hit another home run. He has a 283, 314, 495 slash and has a 123 WRC plus. So he has come back crushing it, and he's become a big part of the Dodgers lineup as they push for yet another, National League championship. So I'm rooting for Tommy right now.
Yeah. I mean, how can you not? I'm still very sad that my favorite player does not play for my favorite team, obviously, but I am glad that he is on a national stage, that more baseball fans are going to know about him. And I am not surprised at all when the trade happened and all the national media was reporting on it. I'm like, he's going to be the 10th man. Like maybe, they'll put him in there and platoon him, blah, blah, blah. I was like, no, Tommy Edman, he might not play the same position every day, but he is going to be in their lineup every single day. He has a significantly better career batting average than Kike Hernandez and Chris Taylor and Miguel Rojas. Like he is easily, those are all like similar types of players to him in the sense that they're like these utility guys that you can kind of plug and play, but he's better than them, like objectively. So that's where I want Cardinals fans to take a serious look and tell me again that Tommy Edman and Brendan Donovan could not both fit on the roster. Half of the Dodgers team is players like them who are not as good as them.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Well, he's doing what he can with what he's got, and he's crushing it for the Dodgers. And
he's having a moment, and
he is. And if he can, they have him for next year. He could be setting himself up. That is a great place to go and make a lot of money if you have a good season. So, good for him. All right, Kelsey, we're going to end this episode, but I do have a stupid game for you. So mentioned it earlier in the episode as the season winds down, the Cardinals are leaning more heavily on theme nights in order to drum up interest. So I've done this game on this show before. Tonight, we're going to be returning to a little game I call Theme Night or Dream Night. So the way this works is I've got a list of theme nights that are either true and have existed somewhere around baseball, either minor league, MLB, or anywhere. It is a real theme night that has happened at a real stadium, or one that I just made up.
Okay.
And so you have to tell me, is it a real night? Is it a theme night or is it a dream night?
Okay.
Okay. So the first one, fedora night.
I'm going to say dream night.
Nope, that is a real night. Put yourself back in like 2012, 2013, when everybody had their fedoras and they were tipping them to everyone.
Yeah, fedoras were a fad.
There was a little moment where right before it became the milady thing that now they're just completely, you wouldn't wear one. But yeah, that was a real night, fedora night. They apparently did it across multiple stadiums.
Wow. Yeah. Okay.
All right. White bread night.
Oh, dream night.
It's a real one.
What? No.
Yeah, they hosted a stadium hosted white bread night, and they gave out free loaves of white bread.
The logistics around that are what my mind immediately goes to.
I was reading that it was a minor league stadium and they had budgeted for 5,000 attendees. So they had 5,000 loaves of white bread and only 1,000 people showed up. So they were so some people left with multiple loaves of white bread.
Oh my goodness. Wow.
Okay.
At least they didn't go to waste.
Yeah, that's true. All right, moving on. Crying in baseball day.
I'm going to say dream night.
All right. That one is fake. Yes.
Yeah. I don't think baseball would actually promote that. I do love my friends who have their Crying in Baseball podcast. I think that's a very important message to be spread and I'm here for it, but I don't see baseball promoting it that way.
Yeah. I was thinking maybe there would be I thought I'd maybe be able to trick you with this one, thinking maybe some minor league team was trying to promote good mental health and whatnot and did
that would be a good approach.
It would be, but
you're onto something.
But nope, it's fake, or at least fake for now. All right, moving on. Milk night.
I mean, if white bread night was a thing, I'm gonna say this was a theme night.
No, this was a fake one. I made up milk night. No,
even during all the Got Milk promotional times. Oh man.
There was a white bread night, but there is not milk night.
There's no logic with these games, Nate. I just can't win.
Before we recorded, I said, Kelsey, we've got a game for you, but don't worry, there's no way you could be good at this game. So it's just bullshit all the way down. That's part of the point. Okay. Pimple popper night.
I really hope that's not a thing. So I'm going to say nightmare night, not even a dream night.
It's a nightmare night. Yeah, that's not a real one. Okay. Moving on. Buzz cut night.
I could see this being tied to something. Again, me trying to use logic here. I'm going to say theme night.
That is true. So this was, they've done it a couple times apparently, where they will offer you free admission to the stadium if you will get a buzz cut in front of everyone.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Again, the logistics behind that seem complex. But
well, you got to sell tickets somehow, When I was doing hard research for this segment, I read about a stadium that set up a failed marriage proposal on purpose. It was actors. The whole thing was staged that they would go out on the field and do a marriage proposal. The person said no, and it was this whole dramatic thing. And it broke news. There was all this failed marriage proposal. And it was this big hype thing. And then they let everyone know that it was fake, and nobody appreciated that. They got so much backlash for it, so
I would have just keep it to yourself.
Just keep it to yourself. If you're going to go and do the whole thing, just keep it. Yeah. Yeah. But I mean, these stadiums, they're that is a dream job of mine, is that I want to just retire and come up with, it's kind of what I'm doing now, but I want it to become a real thing. Come up with theme nights.
Absolutely. My dad has told me multiple times I would be good at that job. So if anyone's listening who hires those people, I'm here if you need me.
All right. I got two more for you. Devices night. Now, this is a night in tribute to the Brannick device. It's that thing that measures your foot at a shoe store. So Brannick Devices night.
Okay, well, I don't think you would have thought that deeply. So I'm gonna say
well, how
theme
dare
night,
you?
but it's still a weird one.
It is real. It is real. I thought if I got super specific, you might think that I made it up because it's so specific, but no, it is real. It was in Syracuse where apparently that device was invented. And so they did a night honoring the Brannick device. So there's your little fun fact for the episode. Now, next time you're getting your shoes and they do the little thing where they slide it up and all that, that's a Brannick device.
See, you throw minor leagues in there and anything
is possible
because they do some really ridiculous stuff.
All right, final one. JFK assassination night.
Well, so my friend and diehard Cardinals fan, Wesley McKinney, is a huge JFK fan. So I assume if this happened, he would have been there and I would have known about it. So I'm going to say, again, maybe not a dream, but a nightmare night.
All right, you saw right through me, Kelsey. I thought it would be hilarious if there was a JFK. We did this game previously, and there was a conspiracy night that one stadium did hold, and it was all about conspiracies and stuff. But no one, as far as I know, has done JFK assassination night.
Oh yeah, I don't know if we're nearing any period in time where there can be an assassination themed night.
Yeah, well, you know what? I didn't
keep that off the books for a while.
That's a great point. I didn't even think about the current environment that we're in, but yeah, no such thing as JFK assassination night. So well, Kelsey, you got a couple of them correct, so thanks for playing.
Anytime.
And that's gonna do it for this week's episode. Kelsey, thank you again so much for spending your evening with me and filling in for Ben. It's been an absolute blast.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
And for our listeners out there, we'll be back as the regular season wraps up. We've got, I think, this and next week's episode really are the last two regular season episodes, but we go all year, so it might actually be more fun in a couple of weeks when we have other things to talk about than on the field. So we'll be here all season, all off season. Tell your friends. Check out the patreon.com/talkingaboutbirds. Check out all of Kelsey's stuff. Please do. It's better than ours. And until next week, go Cardinals.